The council chamber looked the same as it always did. Tall walls made of crystal reflected light from 1,000 worlds. Representatives from 60 different species sat in their designated seats, talking about trade routes and border disputes. But something was different today. Human section was empty. Ambassador Claire Bennett had not missed a single session in 43 years. She arrived early, stayed late, and always listened more than she spoke. The other ambassadors had grown so used to seeing her quiet presence that they forgot to notice it. Now her empty chair seemed to echo through the massive hall. On the other side of the station, Commander Jake Morrison walked through the human embassy for the last time. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor as he checked each room. The walls were bare now. Photos of Earth, the paintings of human cities, the flags from different nations, all packed away in cargo containers. His team had worked through the night, removing every trace of 40 years of human presence. "Sir, the last transport is ready," said Lieutenant Amy Parker. She stood in the doorway, holding a datapad. Her face showed no emotion, but Jake knew her well enough to see the sadness in her eyes. This place had been her home for 6 years. "Any questions from the station authority?" Jake asked. "A few. The Vrixian secretary wanted to know why we're leaving." "I told her we received new orders from Earth," Amy replied. "And what did she say?" She seemed confused, asked if we were coming back. I just smiled and said nothing. Jake nodded. The orders from Earth were clear. Remove all personnel. Take everything that belongs to humanity. Be polite. Be professional. But give no explanations. Let them wonder. Let them figure it out themselves. Dr. Henry Cole sat in the science wing, his fingers moving across a holographic keyboard. He was deleting files. 40 years of research data disappeared with each command. The work had been good. It helped alien scientists cure diseases, improve their technology, and understand the universe better. They had called him friend. They had shared meals with him. But when humans needed support in the council, those same friends had voted against them every single time. "Henry, what are you doing?" asked Kelvin, a Zelther scientist who had worked beside him for 20 years. "Cleaning up," Henry said without looking up. "But this is our joint research. The cure for the Barrow's plague, the shield technology. You cannot just delete it." Henry stopped typing and finally looked at his old colleague. "This is human research that we shared with you. We're taking it home now. People will die without these cures." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before dismissing every human proposal in the council for the last 10 years. Henry's voice was calm, not angry. That somehow made it worse. Kelvin opened his mouth to argue, but found no words. He watched as Henry finished deleting the last files, picked up his bag, and walked out of the lab. They had been friends once. Maybe they still were. Friendship apparently had limits that Kelvin had never noticed before. Captain Lisa Wright sat in the pilot's seat of the transport ship Dawn Runner. Around her, hundreds of other human ships formed a perfect formation. They were all leaving at the same time. Every human vessel in council space, whether military, civilian, or commercial, was heading home. The fleet stretched for thousands of kilometers, a river of metal and light flowing away from the galactic center. "All ships report ready, Captain," her co-pilot said. "Then let's go home," Lisa replied. The ships moved as one, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. Lisa had flown this route 1,000 times, bringing supplies to council worlds, helping with evacuations during disasters, transporting diplomats to peace talks. She had been shot at, thanked, ignored, and decorated. But mostly ignored. She remembered. The time she had warned the council about pirates gathering near the Helkin system. She had solid intelligence, good sources, clear evidence. The council representatives had smiled politely and done nothing. 2 weeks later, the pirates attacked, and 3 colony ships were destroyed. The council then asked humans to hunt down the pirates, which they did. No one apologized for ignoring the warning. No one even mentioned it. "Will we ever come back here?" her co-pilot asked. "Maybe, but not like before." "You're not as the ones who fix everyone's problems while they ignore us," Lisa said. Back on the station, the alien representatives finally started to realize something serious was happening. The human section was not just empty for one session. The humans were actually leaving. All of them, Counselor Dexener of the Vrin Collective, rushed to the human embassy, only to find it sealed and empty. He tried to call Ambassador Bennett, but his messages went unanswered. He tried to contact Earth directly, but the response was formal and cold. Humanity is recalling its representatives. We will continue normal diplomatic relations through official channels. Thank you for your understanding. But there was no understanding. What had happened? Why now? The council reviewed recent votes and found nothing unusual. They had voted against human proposals, as they always did. They had dismissed human concerns, as they always did. Had asked for human help and received it, as they always did. Everything was normal, except it was not normal anymore. The humans had decided that normal was not good enough. On Earth, news of the withdrawal spread quickly. Some people celebrated. Finally, humanity was putting itself first. Others worried about the consequences. But most people felt a sense of relief. They were tired of giving everything to aliens who appreciated nothing. President Helen Carter watched the ships return home on her screen. Each dot of light represented humans who had spent years, sometimes decades, serving in council space. They had been doctors, teachers, engineers, soldiers, diplomats, and traders. They had been the best humanity had to offer. The galaxy had treated them like servants. "Are we sure about this, Madam President?" her advisor asked. "Or sure. Then I have been about anything in my life," Helen replied. "We spent 40 years trying to be good galactic citizens. Helped everyone who asked. We asked for so little in return. It's just respect, just to be heard. We did not even get that." The last ship crossed into human space 12 hours later. Captain Greg Palmer, who had spent 30 years running cargo across the galaxy, shut down his ship's long-range communicator. He would not be taking calls from alien clients anymore. His ship, his time, and his life were his own again. In the council chamber, the empty seats remained empty. And for the first time in decades, the other representatives had to solve their own problems without the humans quietly fixing everything in the background. They did not know it yet, but they were about to learn a very expensive lesson about taking good people for granted. 3 months passed like a slow-moving storm. First, the council barely noticed the absence. Humans had always been quiet workers, never demanding attention or praise. But as weeks turned into months, cracks began to appear in the foundation of galactic civilization. Small problems grew into bigger ones. Simple tasks became impossible challenges. The trade networks failed first. Captain Greg Palmer had moved goods across half the galaxy for 30 years. His routes were efficient, his prices fair, and his delivery times reliable. Other human captains had done the same. Together they had formed the backbone of galactic commerce. Their ships only traveled between human worlds. Merchant Xylath of the Korthan Empire waited at the station for a shipment of medical supplies. The shipment was already 3 weeks late. 4 human ships would have delivered it in 5 days. He called 12 different transport companies. Most were fully booked for months. The few available ships wanted triple the normal price. "This is unacceptable," Xyloth complained to the station manager. "Where are the human transporters?" "Gone. They only work in human space now," the manager replied. "Can we not hire them?" They declined politely, but firmly. Across the galaxy, similar conversations happened every day. The smooth flow of goods that everyone had taken for granted suddenly became slow and expensive. Factories shut down, waiting for materials. Hospitals ran out of medicines. People started hoarding supplies, which made the shortages worse. The medical crisis came next. Dr. Nicole Stevens had been the chief medical coordinator for the council. She had spent 20 years developing treatments that worked across different alien biologies. Before her research, a medicine that cured one species might poison another. She had solved that problem. She had trained doctors from 50 worlds in her methods. Then she went home. When the Zelthian plague broke out on Colony World Praxis 7, the local doctors tried to use the treatments Dr. Stevens had developed. But the protocols were incomplete without her regular updates. They made mistakes. The plague spread to 3 nearby systems before being contained. Thousands died, who could have been saved. "We need to contact Dr. Stevens," the head of medical services demanded. "We tried," she responded with a polite message saying she is no longer available for consultation outside human space, came the reply. Offer her more money, whatever she wants. It is not about money. She's simply not interested. The medical coordinator stared at his screen in disbelief. How could she just refuse to help? People were dying. Oh. Did she not care? But of course, people had been dying for years in human space, while the Council ignored human requests for aid. Perhaps Dr. Stevens remembered that very well. The Melita rediscovered their problem during a routine training exercise. Commander Ryan Hughes had maintained the Council's tactical software for 15 years. He had upgraded their systems, fixed their bugs, and improved their response times. The military leaders had barely noticed his work. Good software just worked quietly in the background. Now their systems kept crashing. Simulations that should have taken hours took days. Response times that had been lightning fast became sluggish. Admiral Corvin stared at the error messages covering his screen and wanted to throw the computer out the airlock. What happened to our systems? He demanded. Commander Hughes maintained them. He updated them every week. Without him, the old problems are coming back, his technical officer explained. Then hire him back. We tried. He declined. Said he is busy with human defense systems. Admiral Corvin realized with growing horror that the Council's military was suddenly much weaker than he thought. All those years of smooth operations had hidden the fact that one human had been holding everything together. Now that human was gone, and they were exposed, Counselor Thexener called an emergency session. The chamber was full, but tension filled the air. Every representative had complaints. Trade was failing. Medical systems were breaking down. Military readiness was dropping. Even simple administrative tasks were taking longer. What happened? Thexener asked the assembly. Why did the humans leave? Silence greeted his question. Finally, Ambassador Zaleth of the Korthon Empire spoke. Perhaps we should ask ourselves what we did to make them leave. We did nothing. Business continued as normal, another representative said. Exactly, Zaleth replied. We treated them as we always did. We voted against their proposals. We ignored their warnings. We used their services and gave nothing in return. That was normal for us. Perhaps normal was the problem. The Council reviewed the records. In the last 10 years, humans had proposed 43 initiatives. The Council had rejected 42 of them. Humans had issued 37 warnings about various threats. The Council had acted on only 4. Humans had requested assistance 18 times. They received help twice. Yet during the same period, humans had answered every single Council request for aid. Every medical emergency, every transport need, every military crisis, every diplomatic problem. They had helped with everything, asked for almost nothing, and received even less. We took them for granted, Zaleth said quietly. We treated them like tools, not partners. We used them until they broke, and then we are surprised when they leave. The other counselors shifted uncomfortably. Some looked angry at the accusation. Others looked thoughtful. A few looked ashamed. But none could deny the truth of what Zaleth said. Can't we negotiate with them? Someone asked. Dexener admitted. I sent messages to Earth. The responses are polite but clear. They will maintain basic diplomatic relations. They will trade at standard rates. But they will not provide the services they once did. They will not send their doctors to our hospitals. They will not transport our goods. They will not train our soldiers. They are cordial but distant. What do they want? Another counselor asked. Nothing. That is what makes this so difficult. They do not want concessions or apologies. They do not want money or territory. They simply want to be left alone. They have withdrawn into their own space and seem perfectly content there. The meeting ended with no solutions. The Council had no leverage. They could not force humans to help them. They could not bribe them because humans were not asking for anything. They could not threaten them because human military strength had been greatly underestimated. Everyone had assumed humans were weak because they were peaceful. That was a mistake. On Earth, life continued. President Helen Carter read the reports from Council space with no satisfaction. She had not wanted the Council to suffer. She had just wanted them to appreciate what they had. but you cannot force people to value you. You can only stop letting them take advantage of you. They are struggling without us, her advisor reported. I know. Let them struggle. Maybe they will learn something, Helen replied. In human space, the returned workers were adjusting to their new lives. Some missed their alien friends and colleagues. Others were simply relieved to be home. But all of them agreed on one thing. They had given enough. It was time for humanity to focus on itself for a change. The galaxy would have to learn to function without human charity. It would be a hard lesson, but necessary lessons often are. Inside human territory, things were changing. The withdrawal had not happened because of anger or revenge. It happened because people got tired. Tired of giving everything and receiving nothing. Tired of being helpful and being ignored. Tired of being taken for granted. So they stopped. And the relief was immediate. Admiral Kevin Brooks stood in the command center on Mars, watching the holographic display of human space. New defensive stations glowed like stars along the border. Patrol ships moved in careful patterns. Everything was designed to protect human worlds, not alien ones. For the first time in decades, human military resources were staying home. The perimeter is secure, Admiral, reported Lieutenant Sam Cooper. All border stations are operational. We have complete sensor coverage of all approach routes. Good. Make sure every captain knows the new rules. We defend human space. We help human ships. Everything else is not our problem anymore, Kevin said. Some of the captains are struggling with that, sir. We spent years rushing to help anyone in distress. It feels wrong to ignore distress calls. I know. But we cannot save everyone. We tried that, and it nearly broke us. Our duty is to our own people first. If we have resources left over after protecting humanity, then we can discuss helping others. But humanity comes first now. Sam nodded, but Kevin could see the conflict in his eyes. Good people did not like ignoring cries for help. But good people also got used up by those who took advantage of kindness. Sometimes you had to choose between being kind and being wise, President. Helen Carter stood before the assembled leaders of Earth's nations. Her hair had more gray in it than a year ago. The stress of the withdrawal had aged her, but her eyes were clear and her voice was firm. We made the right choice, she said. For 40 years, we gave the galaxy our best. We shared our medicine, our technology, our time, and our lives. We ask only to be respected as equals. Instead, we were treated as servants. Our warnings were ignored. Our proposals were rejected. Our requests for help were denied. So we stopped helping them. Some people say we are being selfish, said the European Union representative. Some people always say that about those who stop allowing themselves to be used, Helen replied. We are not being selfish. We are being sane. We are putting our own people first, as every other civilization does. The strange thing is not what we are doing now. The strange thing is that we gave so much for so long to those who appreciated so little. What if the council apologizes? Asked another leader. Then we accept their apology politely, but we do not go back to the old ways. An apology does not erase 40 years of being dismissed and disrespected. Trust is built slowly and destroyed quickly. They destroyed it. If they want to rebuild it, that will take time. A lot of time. The meeting ended with unity. Earth's nations agreed to maintain the withdrawal. Human ships would travel only in human space. Human doctors would treat only human patients. Human technology would stay in human hands. The galaxy had taken humanity for granted. Now the galaxy could learn to function without them. Engineer Paul Dixon walked through the construction site of Defense, Station 17. The station was massive, bristling with sensors and weapons. It would be one of 40 stations forming a protective ring around human territory. Not a wall to keep others out, but a boundary to make clear where human responsibility ended. How long until completion? Paul asked his assistant. 3 months for full operation? Basic systems are already online, replied the young engineer named Kate Morris. Good. I want these stations to send a clear message. We will defend our home. We will protect our people. but we are done being the galaxy's free security service. Kate looked at the station taking shape before them. Do you think we will ever work with the Council again? Maybe on our terms. As equals? Not as their unpaid problem solvers. Paul's voice was firm. He had spent 15 years maintaining alien infrastructure, fixing their mistakes, upgrading their systems. They had paid him, but they had never respected him. Payment without respect is just using people with extra steps. Dr. Laura Griffin led the research team at the New Geneva facility. They were working on medical technology that would have changed the galaxy. Treatments for diseases that affected multiple species. Surgical techniques that worked across different biologies. Diagnostic tools that could scan any life form. Before, this research would have been shared freely. Now, it stayed home. We have a breakthrough on the Carver syndrome treatment, announced Dr. Peter Yang, one of her team members. Excellent. Make sure all data is secured. Triple encryption. No external access, Laura instructed. Should we publish our findings? In human medical journals only, not in the galactic database. Peter hesitated. This treatment could save millions of lives across the galaxy. I know. But we developed it with human resources, on human time, in human facilities. The Council had 40 years to support this kind of research. They chose not to. They chose to vote against every human initiative. So now they can develop their own treatments. That seems harsh. Laura looked at him with tired eyes. Is it harsh to keep what is yours? Is it harsh to stop giving everything away to people who never say thank you? We are not being cruel. We are just no longer being doormats. The conversation happened 100 times across human space. People who had spent their lives helping aliens struggled with the new reality. It felt wrong to have solutions and not share them. But it felt more wrong to keep giving to those who only took. Colonel Steve Manning trained the new pilots at the Academy on Luna. These young men and women would defend human space, not the galaxy. They would fight for their families, not for aliens who could not be bothered to defend themselves. Remember, he told his students, your loyalty is to humanity. You will face situations where others need help. You will want to help them. That is good. That means you are good people. But you must ask yourself if helping them is worth dying for them. If the answer is no, then you come home. A young pilot named Chris Bailey raised his hand. Sir, what if the situation is really bad? What if people are dying? People are always dying somewhere, Bailey. You cannot save everyone. Your job is to save humans. Let the Council save their own people for once. The words sounded cold, but they were necessary. For too long, human pilots had died protecting aliens who would not have done the same for them. Those days were over. In the depths of human space, far from the Council, life went on. Colonies grew. Trade flourished. Science advanced. Humanity discovered that when they stopped spending all their energy on others, they had plenty left for themselves. The silence from Earth was the loudest message humanity had ever sent. Not a declaration of war, not a list of demands, just silence, just absence. Just the withdrawal of all the things the Council had taken for granted, and in that silence humanity found peace. The peace of knowing they owed nothing to anyone. The peace of living for themselves. The peace of being home. 2 years after the humans left, the Council faced its worst crisis in a century. The problems that started small had grown into disasters. What began as inconvenience had become catastrophe. And the Council finally understood what they had lost. The Crithian swarm appeared without warning. They were a hive mind species from beyond the edge of mapped space. Thousands of ships moved as one, attacking colony worlds and stripping them of resources. In the past, this would have been a crisis that humanity handled. Commander Beth Hayes and her rapid response fleet would have arrived within days. Human ships were fast, and their captains were fearless. But Beth was back on Earth now, protecting human colonies. The Council's military response was slow and disorganized. Admiral Corvin tried to coordinate defense, but ships from different species could not work together effectively. The Corthon fleet used different communication protocols than the Vrixian ships, The Zelthor military refused to take orders from the Korthon admiral. By the time the council forces assembled, 3 colonies had been destroyed, and 50,000 people were dead.
"Oh, we need human help,"
Admiral Corvin said in the emergency meeting, then asked them. Counselor Thexner replied. Did? They said no, politely but firmly. They said the Krithian swarm is not threatening human space, so it is not their problem. The room fell silent. The idea that humans would refuse a request for military aid seemed impossible. They had always helped before. Always. But always had ended 2 years ago. On the colony world of Praxis 9, people packed their belongings and prepared to evacuate. The Krithian swarm was 3 days away, and the council fleet was still 2 weeks from arriving. Governor Malthor sent out desperate pleas for help to anyone who would listen. Several merchant ships changed course to help evacuate, but they were small vessels. Most people would be left behind. One message reached a human patrol ship at the edge of human space. Captain Jim Foster read it and felt his stomach twist. 50,000 civilians needed evacuation. His ship could carry 200. The math was terrible. He could save 200 and watch 50,000 die. Or he could do nothing and maintain the boundary humanity had drawn. He made the jump to Praxis 9 without asking permission. He saved 212 people, mostly children. Then he jumped back to human space before the Krithian swarm arrived. He was court-martialed for violating orders, then quietly given a medal. The message was clear. Humanity would not officially help. But individual humans might still have consciences that would not let them stand by. The economic summit on Nexus Station collapsed into chaos. Before, human mediators like Frank Shaw had kept negotiations on track. Frank had an ability to understand what each species really wanted beneath their demands. He could find common ground where others saw only conflict. He had saved a dozen trade agreements from failure. But Frank was home now, teaching at a university on Mars. Without human mediation, the summit fell apart. The Korthon Empire accused the Vrixian collective of trade fraud. The Vrixians accused the Korthons of espionage. Ancient grievances surfaced. Insults were exchanged. 3 major trade alliances dissolved in a single afternoon. Economic sanctions were declared. Tariffs were imposed. The galactic economy, already weakened by human withdrawal, took another massive hit. "This is madness," shouted Ambassador Xylith. "We are destroying ourselves over pride and old arguments." "Then perhaps you should have valued the humans who prevented this madness," replied the Vrixian representative coldly. Education systems across the galaxy struggled. Professor Karen Mills had developed teaching methods that allowed different species to learn together. Before her work, each species could only really teach their own kind. She had bridged that gap, creating protocols that worked for everyone. Then she went home. Universities tried to continue with her methods, but they were missing key elements. Professor Mills had updated her techniques constantly, adapting to new situations and new species. Without those updates, the system broke down. Interspecies classrooms became frustrating for teachers and students alike. Many institutions gave up and returned to species-specific education. A generation of young people would grow up less connected than their parents. The sanctuary. Cords fell apart in the most dramatic way. The treaty had kept peace between the Zelthor and Vrixian peoples for 15 years. Ancient enemies had learned to coexist. Attorney Daniel Price had spent those 15 years crafting the agreement, mediating disputes, and preventing conflicts. The treaty was his life's work. Then humanity withdrew, and he went with them. Without Daniel to mediate, small disagreements became major disputes. Border incidents that he would have resolved in hours took months to address. Both sides accused the other of violating the treaty. Neither side would admit their own violations. Within 6 months, the Sanctuary Accords were void. Within a year, the Zelthor and Vrixian people were at war. Counselor Thexner made the journey to the edge of human space. He requested an audience with human leadership. He was made to wait 3 days before Ambassador Chris Wallace agreed to meet him. The meeting took place at Gateway Station, a human facility that marked the boundary of their territory. "Thank you for seeing me, Thexner," began. "You're welcome. How can humanity help the Council today? Chris asked politely. His tone was professional and distant. They had been friends once, had shared drinks and stories. Now Chris looked at him like a stranger.
Oh.
We need help. The Crithian swarm is destroying our colonies. Our economy is collapsing. Wars are breaking out. We need human assistance. That does sound difficult. Will you help us? No. The word hung in the air like a blade. Vexener had expected negotiation, conditions, demands for concessions. He had not expected a simple, flat refusal. People are dying, he said. People die every day. Humans died when the Council ignored our warnings about the Helkin pirates. Humans died when the Council denied our requests for medical support during the Rosk Plague. Humans died when the Council voted against our defensive initiatives. We mourned them alone because none of you cared. We made mistakes. We admit that. But will you let innocent people suffer for our mistakes? Chris leaned forward. We are not letting anyone suffer. We are simply not preventing their suffering anymore. There is a difference. You have ships, weapons, doctors, and engineers. Use them. Protect your own people. Solve your own problems. That is what we are doing. We cannot do it without you. Then learn. We did not have anyone to help us build our civilization. We figured it out. You can too. Vexener left the meeting with nothing but a polite goodbye. He reported back to the Council that humanity would not help. Some counselors were angry. Others were resigned. A few understood that this was exactly what the Council deserved. The galaxy learned slowly that humanity had been the glue holding everything together, not through force or threats, but through endless patience and quiet competence. They had been the mediators in disputes, the first responders in crises, the reliable partners in trade, the innovative minds in science, and the Council had treated all of that as if it were free and infinite. Now they knew better. Now they understood the price of taking good people for granted. And that price was measured in burning colonies, broken treaties, and the silence from Earth that answered all our pleas for help. 5 years after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy looked very different. Some species had adapted and grown stronger. Others had collapsed under the weight of problems they could no longer solve. The Council itself was fracturing, with member species questioning whether the alliance had any purpose anymore. They faced a choice between complete collapse and fundamental change. A delegation arrived at the human border. It was led by Councillor Vexener and Ambassador Xyleth, along with representatives from 20 species. They came without warships or threats. They came in small ships, almost humble in their appearance. They requested permission to enter human space and were granted it. But only after thorough security checks. Gateway Station received them with proper protocol but no warmth. They were shown to a conference room and served refreshments. Then they waited. Ambassador Claire Bennett, who had once sat in the Council chamber every day for 43 years, arrived 3 hours later. She was older now, her hair completely white. She had retired from active service but agreed to hear what the Council had to say. Thank you for meeting with us, Vexener began. His voice was different from 5 years ago. Less confident. More careful? You're welcome. Please, tell me why you have come such a long way, Claire said. Her tone was polite, but gave nothing away. We come to acknowledge our mistakes, to admit what we did wrong, to ask for forgiveness. Vexener paused, seeming to gather courage for the next words. We were blind. We treated your people as servants, not partners. We dismissed your counsel and exploited your generosity. We took everything you gave and offered nothing in return. We understand now what we lost. Ambassador Xyleth spoke next. We have prepared a formal proposal. Full council representation for humanity with veto power over all major decisions. Expansion rights to any unclaimed territory you desire. Exclusive trade privileges with guaranteed fair prices. Full military alliance with command authority for human officers. We offer everything we can think to offer. Claire listened without interrupting. When they finished, she spoke quietly. I will present your offer to President Carter and the Earth leadership. But I should tell you now, I do not think they will accept. Why not? Dexter asked. Is the offer insufficient? We can negotiate better terms. It is not about terms. It is about trust. You broke something that cannot be fixed with political agreements. The delegation left Gateway Station and traveled to Earth. President Helen Carter, older and grayer, but with eyes still sharp and clear, received them in the same conference room where she had announced the withdrawal 5 years earlier. The delegation presented their offers again in more detail. They had prepared extensive documents outlining every concession they were willing to make. Helen read through the proposals carefully. The delegation waited nervously. Finally, she set down the papers and looked at them directly. Thank you for these offers. They are generous. More generous than what you offered when we were actually helping you. She paused. But we do not want them. What do you want? Dexter asked desperately. Name your price. We will pay it. Do not want anything from you. That is what you do not understand. We spent 40 years wanting simple respect, wanting to be heard, wanting to be valued as equals. You offered none of that. Now you offer us everything, but only because you need us. That is not respect. That is just need dressed up as respect. The people are dying, Ambassador Xyleth said. Wars are being fought. Economies are collapsing. Do you feel nothing for the suffering? I feel quite a lot, Helen replied. I feel sad that it took all this suffering for you to see what you had. I feel frustrated that you only value us now that we are gone. But I do not feel guilty. We gave you 40 years. We gave you everything. You took it all and never said thank you. The suffering now is not our responsibility. So you will do nothing? You will just watch the galaxy burn. We will watch the galaxy learn to solve its own problems as we learn to solve ours. Some species will thrive. Others will fall. That is the nature of civilizations. We are not your parents. We are not responsible for saving you from yourselves. The delegation tried for 3 more days. They offered more concessions. They begged. Some members became angry, claiming humanity had an obligation to help. Others remained humble and pleading. None of it changed anything. Earth's answer remained the same. No. On the 4th day, Captain Amy Parker, now a senior officer in the human fleet, escorted the delegation back to Gateway Station. Some of the aliens were bitter. Others seemed to finally understand. As they prepared to leave, Vexner spoke to Amy quietly. Your people have changed. You used to be so eager to help everyone. Still help everyone, Amy replied. We just help ourselves first now. That is not change. That is growth. In human space, life continued to flourish. Dr. Henry Cole taught a new generation of scientists. He told them about his years in council space, about the work he did and the friendships he made. But he also taught them about self-respect, about knowing when to walk away from those who do not value you. Never let anyone make you feel guilty for having boundaries, he told his students. We are kind people. We want to help. But kindness without boundaries is just self-destruction disguised as virtue. Engineer Paul Dixon stood at the completed Defense Station 17, now part of a network of 40 stations protecting human territory. The galaxy was more dangerous now than 5 years ago. Wars and pirates and desperate refugees all pressed against human borders. But the borders held, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. A refugee ship appeared at the border, fleeing the war between the Zelthor and Vrixian peoples. It requested permission to enter human space. Permission was denied, but the ship was given supplies and coordinates to a neutral world where refugees were being accepted. Some refugees were angry at being turned away. Others understood and were grateful for the supplies. Captain Jake Morrison watched the refugee ship turn away and felt the familiar conflict. He wanted to help, but he also knew that helping one ship would bring 1,000 more. Human worlds could not absorb millions of refugees without destroying their own civilization. So they gave what they could and maintained their boundaries. It was not perfect, but it was sustainable. Captain Lisa Wright, now an admiral, coordinated the human fleet. They patrolled the borders and protected human shipping lanes. Sometimes they encountered distress calls from alien ships. The official policy was clear. Not our problem. But policy and conscience did not always agree. When a Korthon medical ship carrying children got caught in an asteroid field, Admiral Wright sent ships to help. She did so knowing she might be court-martialed again. The medical ship was saved. The children lived. Wright received a reprimand and a private thank you from the president. "We cannot save everyone," Helen told her privately. "But we also cannot let children die when we could easily help them. Use your judgment. Save lives when you can. Without compromising our security, but do not expect the Council to appreciate it." The galaxy slowly adapted to a universe without human charity. Some species built their own rapid response fleets. Others improved their medical systems. The Council reformed its structure to address some of the problems that had driven humanity away. It was too little too late to bring humans back, but it might prevent the Council's complete collapse. On Earth, children grew up hearing stories about the time before the withdrawal. They learned about the 40 years when humanity tried to be the galaxy's helper. Some saw it as a noble time. Others saw it as a time when humanity lost itself trying to please others. But all agreed that the withdrawal had been necessary. Dr. Laura Griffin's medical research continued to advance. The treatments that could have saved millions across the galaxy remained in human hands. Some called this cruel. Others called it justice. Laura called it self-preservation. "We are not obligated to give away everything we create," she said. "Our work has value. If the Council wants access to our research, they can offer something of equal value in trade. But the days of free gifts are over. Years passed. The Council continued to exist, though much reduced in power and unity. Human ships occasionally appeared in Council space, trading or traveling through. They were polite but distant. The easy friendship of earlier years was gone, replaced by professional courtesy and carefully maintained boundaries. Commander Beth Hayes, tired from military service, wrote a book about her experiences. It became required reading in human schools. The title was simple: The Price of Being Taken for Granted. In it, she described both the good and the bad of humanity's time in Council space. She did not encourage hatred of aliens, but she did encourage self-respect. "We can be friends with others without being their servants," she wrote. "We can help others without destroying ourselves. We can be kind without being foolish." The galaxy taught us these lessons the hard way. Now we pass them on to you. Ambassador Claire Bennett lived her final years quietly on Earth. She was often asked if she regretted the withdrawal. Her answer never changed. "I regret that it was necessary, but I do not regret that we did it." President Helen Carter, in her final address before retirement, spoke about the galaxy and humanity's place in it. "We are not isolationists. We are not hostile to other species. But we learned that you cannot pour from an empty cup. We gave until we were empty, and it nearly broke us. Now we are full again. Perhaps one day, when there is mutual respect and genuine partnership, we can work with the Council again. But that day is not today, and we are content with that." The galaxy learned its lesson slowly and painfully. Some gifts, once rejected, are never offered again. Some people, once taken for granted, walk away and do not return. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. Humanity had not become cruel or cold. They had simply learned the difference between compassion and self-destruction. They had learned to value themselves as much as they valued others. They had learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to stop enabling those who refuse to help themselves. And in learning these lessons, humanity finally found peace. Not the peace of being needed, not the peace of being appreciated, but the peace of being whole, being home, and owing nothing to anyone but themselves.